this evening, but welcome to the November 17th, 2020 regular session of the Mason City Schools Board of Education. We have been in a work session now, so we are actually moving to item number 3, reconvening to regular session, and then the opening of regular session, item number 4. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 5, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 6, superintendent's presentation.
Yes, for our superintendent's presentation, our original plan was that we were going to have all the National Merit Scholar semifinalists here together in a larger space, but we decided that it was an alternative way to do that that might be a bit safer. So we have a program that will be shown, and we're going to go through that program now. So we'll have a little video. If you would please tune in and watch through our video, and then it will be followed by some of the information from each of our finalists. So I want to thank, we're going to have another section of this as Tracy transitions to the next section. I want to thank our Board of Education for going out, I think it was Sunday, most of the day Sunday, and a little bit of wind on Sunday, to run to each of the homes of each of our finalists, delivering their certificate, but also delivering their sign, as you see the signs here in the front. So Tracy, if you have the next section ready, we'll watch along. Favorite. Well, congratulations to all those students and their families for what an amazing accomplishment, and we're so blessed to have them. So let's give them a hand. So families that are watching this out there, I hope that you could join that and share that with others and capture that video. And we're just so proud of your kiddos, and thank you so much for all that you've done to invest in their lives as well. So thank you, Tracy, for putting that presentation together, and thanks everyone for going out this weekend and delivering those personally to each of their homes. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'll just note that this is, one of the meetings that I think we look forward to each year because we get to connect, obviously, with the families in our district, but also just see the pride, in the families. And there's always something different, with 2020 going on, and it was like our, diploma drop. It was kind of a unique and special opportunity to see that pride reflected, in families' homes, in their front yard. And I think just about every home I showed up at, and that, you showed up at as well, I didn't know what to expect necessarily on a Sunday afternoon, what the reception would be, but I think just about every door we came up to, it opened before I could even step on the front lawn, and there was just, the excitement. It's clear there's a lot of pride, and for good reason. And so we congratulate all of those students. All right. Well, with that, we will move along to our next item on the agenda, which is number 7, hearing of the public. We have a few members that have filled out the form to speak tonight, so I'll just read through our guidelines for public comment. Community participation at a board meeting is limited to the hearing of the public portion each meeting. The board does not deliberate or decide any issue during the hearing of the public section. Excuse me. Each person is allotted 3 minutes until the total time is used, and in order to prevent disclosure of students or employees' private information, the board doesn't allow complaints of specific employees of the district in public session. We also have a couple of just ground rules that you have to be a resident of the district, and in order to speak during our hearing of the public. Mr. Bevan, our treasurer, keeps the time, and so if you hear the alarm go off, it doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. It just means that the time is up, and we move on to the next speaker. I will also say that this portion of our meeting is designed to provide a platform for our parents and other residents in the district to address the board. But it's not the only avenue that members of the community can address the board. We also have our email and phone numbers available. And if you would like to get into a dialogue, because this is not really part of what we do during the hearing of the public, we would like to connect with you outside of this forum as well. So with that, I'll begin. Our first speaker is, I think, Monica Suri.
Hello, my name is Monica Suri.
If you could go ahead and take the podium, please.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Monica Suri. I have a couple of concerns written down over here. So I've learned that more students are moving from online learning to in-person schooling for second semester. So then the students moving from in-person to online. And my biggest concern right now is that it should not affect the quality of education what online students are getting right now. The second thing is online students are not getting any opportunity to do lab work like for chemistry. So could this be taken into the consideration for second semester? As many of you already know that we have a Facebook group for online parents, and we have moderators for each grade. So I would suggest to include these moderators on the design of next year's online learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Suri. Our next speaker is May Zadam.
Hello, my name is May Zidin. I have 4 kids in the district, and as a wife of a physician in the ER, we had like a clear vision for how the COVID gonna be for the first half of the year. So we decided to make our kids, all of them, online, based on the plan I received from the school district that I will barely feel a difference between the in-person and the online. But unfortunately, I didn't find this with my first grader. He had 15 minutes daily of teaching, that's all, and the rest I have to do it with him. With my 7th grade, he has no math teacher. It's a video for him to learn and understand the math of a 7th grader. So we are, as an adults, expecting a 12-year-old student to learn from videos as if he is a college student. My 4th grader doesn't have like any help in the science and social studies. And she also has videos, and I have to follow up with her, and I have to teach her science and social study. My freshman in high school, she is an honor student. She's doing her best to understand and analyze the information by her own, which is costing her a lot of time of studying and doing a lot of stuff for herself, which decreasing her entertainment or physical time, which with the quarantine and with everything around us, as a parent, I really has a fear of her mental and psychological health. And I found myself has to teach a 4th grader, 7th grader, and a 1st grader, which like doesn't make sense for me to be all those teachers. At the end of the day, I'm the mom. So I had a problem with the transparency of the plan I received in the beginning of the year. This is not what I signed for. I signed for to be equal to the in-person, which is not happening at all in my house. So I had to give my kids extra tutoring from outside, which now, like their numbers and the cost, it's unbelievable because they are using the situation we are in. As a family, like a lot of families got affected with the COVID financially. Now I have to pay a $70 per hour for my son for his language art, and to have to pay $250 per month for him to learn math because I can't teach him. So this is not what I signed for in the beginning of the year. I felt now that I'm punished to choose the online rather than in person, rather than protecting my kids by my own way and protecting the community from the spreading of the COVID. I don't know, but I really wish for you to find something for this. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Zhang. Our last speaker is Joy Bennett.
Hi, I wanted to share a little bit about what it's like for my 7th grader to do school at home. It's been an interesting experience having a 7th grader doing school at home while I'm working full time, so I just want to describe a few things. Every day he complains about school's PLP. In fact, when he learned I was coming tonight, he said, "You have to tell them to go back to Schoology." He was adamant about that, so I promised I would say that. He said the students and teachers already know Schoology. He's like, I don't understand why we're not using that. So a typical day, he gets up at the last second for his 8 a.m. Zoom class. He makes himself breakfast of taquitos or ramen sometime mid-morning. At least once a week, I get an email from a teacher saying assignments are missing. He paces the house nonstop, stomping nonstop. He runs out the front door to check the mailbox at least once an hour because it's something to do. He also takes hourly bike rides, like bike rides every hour, because he's so stir-crazy. When I see him with his Chromebook, he's usually just staring at it or mindlessly clicking, trying to figure out where he's supposed to go. Running around, so sometimes it's pacing, sometimes it's just running from one end of the house to the other. His grades are varied from below passing to just barely above passing. There's always assignments that are behind. I don't know how much he's learning. He doesn't think he's learning much. There's just not a lot getting absorbed. So I would like to put this question out there, and I'm sure that many of you are thinking about it, but I just want to make sure. I'd like to know what the plan is for students like him, who are not learning very well this year. How is there summer school? Have you thought about repeating grades? What about getting them caught up next year? Because there are a lot of students, I know he's not the only one, who's just barely, sort of getting by. So I would like to make sure that we're thinking about it. It hasn't been great. We've had great family time, but as Maya said, I'm not a teacher, and I'm not doing a good job of it, and he's not learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We did have one other speaker provide a form. Maya Abiyad. Yes.
Hi, and thank you for the opportunity of having us and stating our facts. My name is Maya Abiyad. I'm an engineer. My husband is an engineer. We are both working. And we have two kids, one in first grade, one in second grade. We start our morning with breakfast, but it was really good in the beginning. But then my kids found out about YouTube, and they found out about video games, especially coding and stuff. Now, coding, I don't have an issue with it, but YouTube has been an issue nonstop, especially with my first grader. He would sneak, go under the table, and then take his iPad. And by the way, the iPad was new. I never allowed iPad in my house because as engineers, we know. So we were delaying the fact that they need iPad and let them be kids. So now we are stuck with having an iPad, a Chromebook, that the kids are sneaking, getting under the table, and then doing. It was really good in the beginning, but then as they grew and they are noticing, I am having some issues. By the way, the staff is outstanding, the material is outstanding. But the issue that I have is there's only 20 minutes per day in the morning when they meet with the teacher, and it's the entire class. And then there's once per day, another 20 minutes when they meet one-on-one to do phonics, to do whatever, like math, reading, stuff like that. So the kids are meeting the teachers for a period of 40 minutes per day, and that's it. So I've heard other districts and I've heard other countries. I'm Lebanese, so I come from Lebanon. And in Lebanon, how they are doing it is they do a period, which is 50 minutes, and they do, for example, math, 50 minutes. The entire students sit down, and then the teacher teaches as if you are in a classroom, and then the kids are there. They're not physically there, but they are sitting down and then taking math, taking English, taking French. It's a different, taking physics, so what I'm concerned about is the quality that my kids are getting. And we end up doing the exercises when we finish after 5 p.m. because we're done working, now we can sit down with the kids and do the homework. My kids are doing good. The teachers have been outstanding with them, but I'm concerned moving forward. I'm concerned when maybe I have deadlines, maybe my husband has deadlines, we cannot it's past 5 p.m., we have to continue our work, and we can't assist the kids. I'm also concerned about next year. What is the plan? And thank you so much for all your hard work. This has been incredible, on everybody, and we are supporting you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abiyad. That concludes our public hearing portion. I will ask for anybody that did speak tonight, if you haven't already, if you could leave, we don't have a portion for it here, but if you could leave an email address on, I don't know if we have any extra forms up there by the entryway there, but if you could leave an email address, I think there were a lot of things there to unpack, and for the purposes of our board meeting, probably more than we can respond to extemporaneously on the spot, but we do always appreciate public participation and community engagement that we have, and you may be aware this is not the first we've heard of folks' issues on online learning, so we appreciate you keeping us updated with your concerns. This is also a time in our meeting when we typically take a pause and let folks get on with their evenings if you'd like to. You're welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting. But we also understand that you have other things going on and things to get up for early in the morning, so. With that, I will move on to item number 9 on our agenda.
8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have-
Down at the bottom.
I always do that. 8. Administrative personnel, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to welcome Priya officially to the team. She's been working diligently already for us. She is an interim principal, assistant principal here at the high school. Priya comes with lots of experience from Cincinnati Public, and then some other experiences. She's actually been a part of starting a school up in elementary school as well, and so she's someone who we are excited to see her work and glad that she joined our team. She'll actually be working closely with some of our online families as well to try to help bridge some of that needs that we've heard from our family, especially in the high school. So that's something that Priya will be coming on and dedicating some of her time to as well. So, and I don't think she's here tonight to officially welcome her, but nope, I don't see her. But if she's out there, welcome.
Awesome. Any other discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 9, non-district funded positions, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 10, certified personnel, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Item number 10.
Yes.
Sorry, back to back, so I was catching up on my back to back here. Yeah, I'd like to just hit pause for a second. When we have retirements, we do want to recognize those that are retiring and thanking them for their service here. We have always different retirements and appointments coming in, but today we have a specific one on here with Deb Gentine. I believe she's 23 years of service in our school district, and I know this was not an easy decision during a difficult time, and I know that Tanya has worked closely with Deb Gentine on this decision-making and this process. So I just want to thank her for her service and the programs that she has started here and the work that she's done for our district over this time, and wish her the best as she moves forward to whatever's next, and I believe that she probably has some interesting things planned for next. So thank you, Debbie.
Thanks, Jonathan. I also note I enjoyed, I think one of the first people that reached out to me just as, somebody in the district was Deb after I was elected a few years ago, and inviting me to speak to her experiential learning students, and really appreciate all she's done for the district.
Yeah, I would add too, if on a short list of people that has had a hand in making the high school a unique place over the last couple of decades, Debbie would be on that list. The Comet Zone is one of the largest operations of its type in the state of Ohio, gives students super unique opportunities that many have taken on to parlay into college experiences and on into their professional lives. And then the experiential learning that I know, Jonathan, you had a hand in helping to kind of turn from something that was a bit of a side opportunity for her to something that was focused and really on a mission, and had a lot of momentum going. And honestly, I think we might have made at a time when it was fully understandable of trying to focus on the basics when almost nothing was certain from day to day. We made a decision to kind of not do that this year. And in hindsight, the economy can't hire enough people. And the opportunities that would have been available for kids would have been super unique right now, as businesses have had to, move to creative ways to continue their operations. And so I really regret that we had to do that, but I do understand that you have to make tough decisions when we're facing situations like we were certainly last spring and every day since. So, so with that, I do want to just thank Debbie for her work. I know that if she's one of those teachers that if students had the opportunity and knew, they'd probably fill the room to thank her for unique opportunities that they had because of her. And I hope she doesn't go far, and I hope that when the dust settles with the situation that we're in, there's another role, another door that opens for her that lets her touch kids like she has for so many years here at Mason. So wish her all the best and thank her.
Yeah, I'll just add to that Debbie is a familiar name from when my kids were at the high school, and I wish her the absolute best in her retirement. She's a great out-of-the-box thinker, a great example.
Thanks, Connie. All right, any other discussion? Sean?
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
A very hesitant yes.
Just for Debbie, just for item number B, letter B, just to be clear, right? Kevin?
Right.
Item number 12, resolution for hiring non-certified supplemental personnel.
Getting 11 there. They keep sneaking them on the bottom
You're
of the
in a
page.
hurry
don't they?
tonight.
Boy, need to get the, what is that?
Bump it up to the next page.
Item number 11, supplemental personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
5-0.
Now, item number 12, resolution for hiring non-certified supplemental personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I see why you're so excited, but the first position is a swimming coach position.
There you go, that's right. Any discussion?
I have to just pause and thank the coaches again. I've met with a lot of these coaches on Zoom calls to prepare for the season. It is not easy to coach during this time period because there's so many added additional things that you have to think about. So I just want to thank our coaches because I know they're working hard to do their best to keep our kids safe and also create. I mean, you've heard from lots of parents about the mental health of our students, and this is one place that some of our students find their way. And so for our coaches to work hard to try to make that a safe environment possible. And we'll take, I tell my son every game is a gift. So just take whatever you can and we'll continue to move on. So thank to all the coaches.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion?
Well,
Sean?
I see
Oh,
one of the
sorry.
benefits that Mason is getting is that we have a professional New York Yankee as our 8th grade boys white baseball coach who is probably facing a bit of an uncertain path on his own, but nice to see our students come back and contribute that way. So
Good eye. Any other discussion? Sean?
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 13, classified personnel superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 14, classified personnel additional duties superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Sean?
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchy?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 15, action items superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Sean, is there anything about the first one here on
Yeah, I can't say a word on that. So Vega Americas, so often we have conversations with Deerfield Township or City of Mason on economic development opportunities. Here's one that's actually come to fruition. A new company moving their headquarters here to Mason on 741 north of town a little bit. Great opportunity where the city is always works very hard to make sure the schools are taken care of. And so this is another example of where the schools are being held harmless. There is no detrimental impact to the school district, and so it's kind of a win-win from our vantage point. We get some more economic development into the community, and also get the full revenue impact of that. So we appreciate the city's efforts.
I appreciate the city going to bat for that they come to the table expecting, as part of any package, that the city or the schools would be made whole. And that's, they value the relationship, and I mean, we're all one team at that point, and we really appreciate that, that approach for sure. Because not every city does that.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Well, I would this is always a good opportunity to remind the community that the $40 million building renovation projects that we completed kind of last year, well, we almost completed fully, Todd, but we opened the doors, fully paid for by a combination of 20 years of planning with the state, and more importantly, the economic development dollars that companies like Vega Americas has provided here in the city and township and school district. Over the years, we've put those dollars against future building obligations that we knew that we would face, and it allowed us to complete a rather large building renovation program that was very much needed without without a bond levy or operating levy. And the work by the City Mason Economic Development Group, other citizens in the area, other businesses who help be ambassadors, our MAID organization, our Chamber of Commerce, and others really make that possible. So it's a moment when we see something like this to remind ourselves that, and to welcome Vega to our community, and to be open to opportunities. I know they're a high-tech sensor company. The world is awash in the need for sensors, and I'm thrilled that they've picked Mason to be part of their growth over the coming years, and wish them all the best and thank them.
All right, any additional discussion? Sean?
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Batchey?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Ms. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 16, Treasurer's Report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
One thing to bring to your attention, we, on a monthly basis, it seems like we're approving some kind of donation from community members or companies in our area that are supporting our students and things we're doing in the district. One thing of note on the donations section tonight, a couple by the name of David and Julia Poe. You've seen them on here actually a couple times recently. Just a Mason family who has taken it upon themselves to go out and find deals wherever they can on PPE and supplies that might be of use to the district, to our staff and students. And so they're on here tonight again for donating some face masks. And so we appreciate their work, just a local Good Samaritan going out trying to help our schools. And so greatly appreciate them and their service.
Thanks, Sean. Any additional discussion? Sean?
Mrs. Batchey?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
5-0.
Item number 17, Committee Reports. Have Arts and Activities Council meeting.
I was unable to attend that meeting. They did have a meeting about a week and a half ago, but I have not seen the minutes. I'll try and get those.
I did note it looked like there was a write-up about the theater going on to radio with a production in this most recent edition of the Chronicle here, so always adapting to the challenges of 2020, so be on the lookout for that production when it's fully baked. Facilities Committee meeting, November 10th.
You want to take that, Connie, or I can?
No, I thought you were going to do it.
Okay. Well,
Have that upstairs.
yeah, Facilities Committee met. We had Jim Forrest joined us for this, and had an opportunity to look at long-term planning on our pavement all around the district. It's really a pleasure to be able to look at a 3 or 4 year plan on pavement as opposed to, hey, we got a problem and we got to fix it. I love hearing things like, if we don't fix this now, it'll cost us 10 times more if we wait till a failure happens. And it's just an evident of long-term planning that I really appreciate. But for the community, you will see over the coming years, probably starting in the early spring this next year, lots of pavement work going on and concrete work to make sure that we get things shored up. And once again, it's also a pleasure, we'll talk about in our Finance Committee, that we have a budget for all of that as well that we can plan for, and we should try to stay away from the urgent and stay strategic in what we do to make it the most fiscally responsible, but also, doesn't cause disruptions for the community and other things when parking lots aren't available and so forth. So really appreciate that. It's an added benefit for us to have a architect who lives in our community, who's a Mason alum, whose father's name is on the Central Building plaques for helping design all the way back to 1951, I believe. So Jim Voorhees is a real treasure for us, and the history and the institutional memory he brings is just incredibly valuable. And so I wanted the board to know that Jim, joined that meeting and was able to help guide us in that. And I know he does that out of a love for Mason, and really appreciate that. So
I'd love to know how our square footage of paved and concrete surfaces compares to, the area, because we probably got a lot, right, Todd? A lot of surface you're talking about. Yeah. Whew. I was trying. Might have done it.
Well, and that's an important point. We have to plan ahead enough so that we can get in the right bid windows. Otherwise, nobody can fit us in, or we end up paying significant premiums if we have urgent issues. And so that's why long-term planning is critical. And Todd does a great job leading that. But Jonathan's there, Sean is there, Tracy's there. Everybody's, the whole team is aware of this effort, and I certainly appreciate it. So,
Thanks, Kevin. Student Achievement Committee, there was a November 17th meeting. That would be today.
Yeah, that was a meeting we had this morning via Zoom. It was actually a really full meeting today. A couple of the highlights is a new course proposal for the social studies elective of ethnic study, an ethnic studies course. As most of you know, we have students from over 50 countries who speak over 70 plus languages. So this ethnic studies course has garnered a lot of interest from our students. Out of a survey taken, over 1,100 survey results, 300 would like to take it, and another 600 said they would be interested as well. The other topic we discussed was the science resources update and review, and teams are coordinated to start reviewing the science resources, and there's a timeline study to review those resources and update and select progressively through, I don't know the end date.
Through the end of the year, so that we could make those recommendations to the board by this spring.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it was a very productive meeting this morning.
Nice. All right, Finance Committee. Take
I've
that
talked a
one.
lot, Charles. Take it away.
Yeah, we had a meeting this morning, and as Kevin alluded to, we looked over the Permanent Improvement Fund and forecast for the next several years in that fund. Wanted to thank Sean for pulling that together. That's something I believe that Kevin has been working with Sean on, and something that we have not always had forecast and examination of that fund in particular, but looking towards, as Kevin was talking about, the big, things that we need to think about on the horizon so that they don't become, emergency fixes and stuff, and looking at where the health of that fund is. I think it's in a good spot, and it's something that not every district has, and it's just another tip of the cap to the past boards and treasurers and fiscal stewardship that's put us in this position to be able to manage this money. I think I forget what we're at right now. Approximately, is it 18 million in that fund, Sean?
Yep.
And we've got some eyes on some big improvements coming up, as Kevin was just alluded to. But we're in a good spot where we can manage that and use those funds responsibly and in a way that is going to uplift and improve the district. With that, I believe those are all of the committee reports since our last meeting. We had 2 weeks since our last meeting, so not as many as we might normally have. But our next item on the agenda is 18, legislative update.
Yeah, legislative update. We have, there's activity going on at the State House this week around a couple topics. The one topic, if you're interested in, there's a fair funding bill that's being put forward. I think it's House Bill 305, if I remember correctly, with the Cupp and Patterson, and that is Cupp and Patterson for putting that forward with others. But that whole idea of that is to rethink and recalculate how schools are funded. So it's one that we've been watching closely. There's been multiple attempts at moving this forward, and we'll see where it goes. So there's a lot of conversation happening in the House right now. And I don't know if there's anything else to add to that specifically, or?
Yeah, it's just it's a bill that's been in process for a while. It's kind of, it died down probably a year and a half ago, and now it's being brought back. The school funding formula has been an ever-evolving thing over the last several years. The funding formula that was in place, so currently, as we sit now, there's no true formula in place. Schools are just being funded off of what they were historically. The most recent formula that was in place, about 80% of those districts were not truly on the formula. They were either on the cap or the guarantee, basically showing that the formula at the time was not working. And so this is kind of an effort to get back on track with some kind of formula, some kind of process for Ohio schools.
And to start with, what does it cost to educate a kid?
Right.
And try to work from that as the way of deciding how much to fund each school, right? So.
Yeah. The other one to just keep your eyes on is the Ed Choice bill that's out there that's going through. I believe it's Senate Bill 358, but that is Matt Huffman has kind of reimagined some of the what the Ed Choice and brought that back to the table right now and trying to get that to move through. There was some testimony today from some of our colleagues from around the state to talk about that, as well as the funding bill. If you remember last year, we were testifying at the state level around that because all of a sudden overnight, we got added to the list, and no one was able to explain exactly why we were on the list. If you remember the Ed Choice, and just to remind people how Ed Choice, the whole idea, how it works is once you get placed onto this list, then you are eligible to take money that the state provides per student off to another location, so to a private school, to other school opportunities around. So you have a choice in that. The original nature of the Ed Choice was to allow for students who were in maybe more high-risk they're high-risk students, possibly in high-risk schools as well, that might be underperforming and not giving them the opportunities to have a choice to move to other opportunities for those students. It then expanded immensely to a place where you now have the number 4 district in the state of Ohio on there, and other, us being on there, and a lot of other schools, hundreds of schools. And so A lot of questions came up last year. We testified, they adjusted and made some amendments to that, and now they're back bringing some new opportunities around that bill. So we're watching it closely to see what that means, and so are our local colleagues around the area as well.
Yeah, I
So,
think Jonathan,
put
did
on
it
your
say maybe like the lowest 20% performing buildings if you're on that list? And that, to me, it gets maybe closer to the idea that it should maybe be fewer schools that might be on that list, but to me, it's a flawed concept anyway, because you're assuming that 20% of schools are performing so poorly that the state should reallocate those local resources for another opportunity. So it's, again, we're starting, my assumption is we're starting with the assumption that schools are failing, and so here's how we're going to do it, rather than asking an honest question, are these schools failing our students, and we need to do something about it. And so until we get to that, I'm not super confident that we're going to get to that point where that's the question that's being asked first, but at least hopefully we're moving in a direction where it makes a little more sense. But
Yep.
I wish we could ask the right questions to begin with.
And the other layer of that for people to understand is the ed choice starts to drive a wedge between public schools and private schools that's not necessarily needed to be there, because we have great partnerships with our public and private schools around the area. So there's a few things that ed choice the dynamics that it starts to do there, and it's based on some measures that I'm not sure exactly measures that would be the right ones.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just looking back to our whole point of school funding, looking at holistically, how should we be funding schools in general, and fully funding them instead of trying to pull two against each other. So I think there's some layers there that are concerning with the ed choice concept.
Limit the rivalries to sports and keep it.
There we go.
Keep it civil. All right, thanks, Jonathan. We've got item number 19, administrator commentary.
I just want, as we start to head into Thanksgiving and thinking about all the things we're grateful for, I'm just so grateful for leaders who are finding a way to make a moment in a time where we have to adjust. So thank you, board members, for making this moment for our national merit students who deserved it, and it was just above and beyond, and it was on the spur of the moment, and you all immediately jumped in and said yes, and I love that. And then other people who are also finding a way to make a difference. So on Saturday would have normally been Mason Kiwanis Pancake Day, and it would have been like our 62nd. And I feel like I've only done 50 of them. No, but instead of like looking at that as an opportunity to just know that we couldn't come safely together and have pancakes, but what we could still do is harness the power of a community. And so big gratefulness to Key Club President Vivian Tran and over 250 members of our community who came out to help elderly people who are kind of shut-ins. So we got those from the Warren County Community Services Center all over the Warren County, up in Franklin. People, I was getting pictures of leaves for miles and miles of raking and window washing, and then also drop-offs to the Mason Food Pantry to help families in need there, making cards for our local first responders, police officers, and firefighters, and just overall, just knowing that as families, we can still do things in a safe way that gives back. So thankful for you as leaders doing that, and thankful for community members and student leaders who are doing that.
Well, mine isn't quite such a thankful tone, but I was thinking about how in this unprecedented year where so much has seemed different, one thing that has stayed the same, at least so far, are state testing requirements, and that those state tests are conducted in person so far. And so I did just want to really commend some of our building teams who have figured out a way to make that work and work with our families who are online to make sure that they had that opportunity to participate in a way that they felt physically safe and comfortable. At MECC, our assistant principal, Kelly Miller, worked to do our KRA. It's our kindergarten readiness assessment with over 200 kindergartners. That's a one-on-one assessment, and figured out a way to use our gym at Mason Central Office to be able to have that space for families to do that. At ME, they recently did the fall online, or the fall third grade ELA test, One nice reprieve for this year from the state is that that is not tied to retention of students, as it has been in previous years through the third grade reading guarantee. So it really was an opportunity for online families, if they wanted to come in and to be able to have that data point for their child, to be able to do that. And Mr. Dorfline organized, along with the team, that opportunity for over 150 online students to come in and to take that test in the building. Right now, here at the high school, Angie Engen is working with the team here and Dan Distel to figure out testing for our winter EOC testing, and that is a must, really, for many of our students, whether in person or online, because it still counts towards graduation points. And so I just so appreciate the ways that they found to creatively use spaces differently to communicate with our families and to make sure that they're included in all of those opportunities. I will also note that, should the state decide that state testing, given so many schools that are remote and are not able to bring students in, is not going to be on the agenda in the spring or whenever that is, we also feel confident that we have our own systems of measuring our students' progress and to know where they are. And so we are not certainly relying on that assessment system to know where our students are and to measure their progress. In fact, even expanding our NWA MAP assessment through 8th grade this year to have just one more way to really measure our students' progress and to give teachers that data as well to inform instruction. So commend our teams in figuring out how to respond, at the same time also recognizing that it's not our need necessarily to continue to do that creative problem solving. However, we certainly will if the state requires us to do so.
Could I step out of the norm and just add a comment? Just, if I knew all the names, Amy, to thank, I would love to just stand here and say them all, but I do want to thank people for those efforts. And I also just want to say that I think we as a board welcome any alternative ideas to any mandate that remains from the state that anybody's scared about or anybody's worried about, that we have open arms to find alternative paths for. What we're seeing, one of the things that we're seeing through this quarantine and the pandemic is the incredibly dysfunctional result of hundreds of state-driven mandates that may have been done initially with some good thinking by some good people, but as they've stacked up on top of each other, have been a weight on school districts all over the country. And when you don't have the opportunity, it exposes all of that when you go to a quarantine situation, a pandemic like this. They don't have the ability or the capability or even the idea, how do we unwind all these things? So they just leave them alone. And when I hear things that I haven't thought of, I'm like, oh my gosh, how in the world is how in the world is, and of course, testing still a thing this year? I understand why some districts might rely on it, and if they want to use it, absolutely, by all means, I fully support their choice to do it. But your last point, I just want to emphasize that we can actually do better for our students when those mandates get lifted. And if they were lifted in the spring, we would welcome them. And if they never showed their face again, I personally would welcome them. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I just commend you and the team for figuring out how to juggle these things for online students, for in-class students, and to figure out how to do it. And like I said, it's an invitation that if there are mandates out there that there are staff members working diligently on to try to solve, I, for one, welcome the opportunity to challenge them. So, for what it's worth.
Thanks.
I just want to thank the board for approving premium pay for our guest teachers last board meeting, and I'm especially grateful to our community who has stepped up, and we have received a lot of support in terms of them inquiring as to how they can sub and be a part of our district, and most importantly, that is going to help keep us open.
I want to send out a huge thank you to Amy Brennan from our team. We're beginning our planning for the 2021-2022 school year, and it's no easy feat. And what I will say is Amy will make sure that we have all of the feedback. We also have the research. We also have what's happening around the nation. But then to be able to put all of that together to then look at our community, say, what does our community want? And how do we create this into something that will be great for us? So I've just been so incredibly impressed at her eye for this and how community input and the humility that she approaches it with and asks very thoughtful questions, because, you know, we've heard feedback tonight. All of this is just going in that repository of more feedback. This is what we know. This is what we know. This is where we want to take our kids, and keeping student outcomes, but also not forgetting the research too. So I just want to extend a huge thank as well as to our administrators that are not only trying to run the day-to-day with the addition of quarantines and all the other things, but we're planning a leadership academy. We're planning for 21-22. So we're not only just dealing with the day-to-day, we're also trying to project into the future and be hopeful and thoughtful about that process. So huge shout out to the team.
Good evening. I'd like to just take this time. Throughout the pandemic, one of the things we get lost on sometime are all the safety protocols around cleaning and disinfecting, which are so important. But we also have to keep in mind school safety, of making sure the doors are locked every day, all of our identification processes are followed. I just wanted to recognize our campus security led by the Mason Police Department. You know, we have 8 officers and one beautiful little German Shepherd named Orion that can smell anything in its sight. The relationship with them has been outstanding. Over the 3 years that we've worked with them, they've not only built relationships with us and our administrators, they've worked with me in building relationships with the Warren County ESC and the Hamilton County ESC, and they often call Mason PD to ask their opinion as well. I just can't say enough about their level of education and how that they do their job and the way they've connected with our kids. And I know this year it's been extra special just watching the relationship develop with our mental health director, who now works with them closely on situations. I would have never thought 3 years ago when we started this could have become such a robust setup the way that it has. And I know Jonathan, Sean, myself, we worked with the city manager and his team and the board to come up with a plan that's not school resource officer based, but police officer based. And it just really turned out to be a good plan. So I just wanted to thank you all for letting us have that opportunity and providing that safety for our students.
I just want to mention how grateful I am for the outstanding and collaborative government entities that we have in our area to work with. We've mentioned, Todd has just mentioned the safety and security team from the City of Mason. We talked about the Vega Americas agreement tonight with the City of Mason. We have lots of partnerships with Deerfield Township. But also specifically tonight, I also wanted to thank the Warren County Commissioners. We have Dave Young, Shannon Jones, and Tom Grossman. They actually reached out to the school districts a couple weeks ago. They had unspent CARES Act dollars that were potentially going to be lost, and so they knew that schools were going above and beyond and spending a lot of money on PPE, cleaning supplies, staffing, those kinds of things, to make sure that kids have what they need. And so in collaboration with our county auditor, Matt Nolan, and also county administrator, Tiffany Zendel, they went through a quick and thorough process to kind of evaluate what kind of expenses had gone on around the district in terms of for all the county schools. And at the end of the day, they quickly approved sharing some of that CARES Act dollars with the schools in the Warren County, and for us in particular, it's about $1.2 million. So again, very grateful to the county commissioners, that whole team over there at the county, for their support.
Thanks, Sean, and I'll also thank the commissioners as well, because they're also partnering and supporting a local video that we are organizing. We were on a call last Tuesday, I believe it was, with the governor on a Zoom call, and he said, would anybody be willing to organize a local Warren County video with a public announcement just to remind people of safety and what safety looks like, so that we can keep our community safe, but also keep our schools and our businesses open. So getting that message out with lots of different people And we were on there. Senator Wilson said, help out. Shannon Jones from them said, hey, maybe we'll fund the video. I volunteered to help organize, and then I called Tracy, the organizer, with ideas really quickly and said, hey, what do you think? And so we're going to hopefully shoot that video on Friday. That will be something that's from lots of different parts of Warren County, and sending that out. And the governor called today and said, I'd like to be a part of your video, so he's going to have a part in the video. So just a quick commercial, but that's I give credit to them for just stepping up and wanting to partner. Another partnership with a state that I'll just remind people of that we started yesterday was our first day of the pilot, the OTES, not OTES.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, I won't say that word again. Nothing with OTES. No, the COVID test, pilot
In the
test.
same.
COVID?
Both
OTES?
deadly devices.
Yeah, so we started that pilot test yesterday. The way that it works essentially is we have a team from Dayton Children's Hospital that comes in with their doctors. We have a research team from Ohio State University, and we also have a kind of an advisory group for myself of local experts, and put together a plan in the study. And basically the study is looking at specifically the classroom setting. Classrooms and schools that are following, they call it the safety bundle, which is wearing your mask, keeping your distance as much as you can, hand hygiene, and make sure we're disinfecting areas. And so just keeping that environment. We also have some ventilation and some other things that we do as well, but keeping that basic safety bundle in place in the classroom. And the students that are within the 6-foot distance of a positive case that are wearing their mask, following those protocols, are invited to be a part of the study if they choose to be, if that's something their family wants them to be a part of. And we have no problem getting people to sign up for that group. People are emailing me and want to be a part of that group. What we need, and we're fortunate, we have this at the high school, but if other schools want to participate, what we will need is people that are part of the, in research it'd be called the control group, or the comparison group is what we would call it in this case in this study. The comparison group is a random sampling of students that are in the district, and they have to compare those two groups as they test them. And it's a rapid test. It's a 15-minute test. The new version of this test is a version 6 of the Abbott laboratory test, the Bionex Now. And that test is about 98% accurate, is what they're telling us, the health experts. It takes 15 minutes. We did it yesterday, so I saw it. I was able to participate. My son and I were some of the first ones to go, because I told my kids that they were going to be part of the I said, this is a great opportunity to help the community, to look at safety for our teachers and for our students. You can be a part of the comparison group. And Henry said, what does that mean, Dad? Well, you get to get a test, and if that test is positive, you go home for isolation, which is fine. You might be asymptomatic. But if it's negative, you go back to class. And so that's the idea with that, is we're trying to take scientific evidence as well as the data that we've already collected, thousands of data points, and look at those closely so that we can continue to understand how to keep schools open carefully, safely for all of our students and our staff, and also keep our communities safe, because there's an impact on our community. And so, after the first day of testing, 100% of those students that participated tested negative and were able to move back to their regular rhythm. It's called if you're in that quarantine group, you're on a modified quarantine, which means you can go back to class with your mask if you're a negative test, but you still have to quarantine the rest of the day. So it doesn't, we're just focusing in on just the classroom setting. So it's not a full release from the quarantine, it's actually modified. So I share that with you. So if you're out there listening to this and you are interested in participating in that comparison group, we would love to have more people in other buildings sign up for that, or let us know, and then we can get that study going in the other buildings as well. So Thursday will be our next day, and we'll continue to update our community on what we're learning from that process. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. Item number 20, board commentary. Desiree?
Thanks. I just wanted to send out a congratulations to the National Merit students and their families for supporting them and their achievement of greatness in high school, and what an accomplishment that is, and you should be very proud. Also, I wanted to thank the parents that take their time to share with us in the district struggles they may be having in certain areas of their education, particularly the online school right now. I know it's probably not fun to come here and stand at the podium and address those issues. It's easy to give accolades. It's hard to criticize, but we honestly do appreciate the input, and it is extremely helpful as we move forward to make things the best that we can do. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Desiree. Matt?
Quickly, I just wanted to thank Tracy and whoever else on the team for the opportunity to still be able to recognize our National Merit students this weekend. And what I said, I think maybe I told you, Tracy, is that you guys are getting really good at coming up with stuff on the fly, because that was a matter of a day, 2 days to have the idea and execute it. And it was incredible. And just like when we did the diploma deliveries, the families, you could tell they appreciated it so much. And we had a couple of houses where the neighbors were there too, and it was really a special time. And of course we would never choose that, but it was really cool that they could share that in a way with their family that they wouldn't have been able to sitting in the small commons, especially this year. So again, really good lemonade out of lemons, as always. And I wanted to say, Amy, what your comment about testing, I mean, it's not surprising, but it's just downright shameful. I'll just say it, that we are living in a time where so many people are sacrificing, and there's so many things that so many people are doing to keep each other safe. And COVID is at top of mind for everybody, and it's central to the efforts that everybody is putting forward in their lives and in their professional lives. And education, as always, is looked to the place that has to fix everything, right? We have to keep our students safe. We have to keep our staff safe. We have to keep the schools open. We have to do this, but there's more money to do that. There's in fact less money because, they couldn't just pause on tests for a year, but they did have time to make sure that our funding was cut 2 years in a row as a response to COVID. So I just want to say that, that is the situation that we find ourselves in as educators, as administrators in education. Again, it's not surprising because so often we find ourselves here, right? That a lot is expected of us. A lot, I should say, of you. I mean, we're not doing the work. A lot is expected of you, but with little additional help when extra things are added. And so when there's an opportunity to just do something just that makes a ton of sense for everybody, to just say, look, whatever the reasons we're doing testing, just this year, it's okay. It's okay, because that's what we're communicating to our students. Where you're at is where you're at, and it's the perfect place to start, and it's going to be the perfect place to start next year. And we're happy for you to be here, and we're lucky to be able to work with you. The fact that they would continue to make us do that is it's just shameful. And I apologize to everybody in our district that has to spend time coming up with creative ideas on how to do tests to help the state show how schools are failing. It's just absurd. And I also want to say that, I'm sure that OTES they're gonna make us do that. But you know what? Shame on anybody in this state if they label any one of our teachers this year as ineffective. Absolutely shameful, and just know that they have their label. Let them have it. Let them go on with their business. And so that is kind of a long and overly dramatic, lead into two is a little bit of just a reminder of where we're at here in Mason and the things that we're trying to do for so many families who are in so many different places that, my heart actually breaks a little bit hearing one of our moms say that she was told that it would be as good as in-person learning, and I really apologize if that mother got that impression from any of the communication that we put out, but we knew that online learning isn't as good as in-person learning. We know that, and our goal could never have been to make it the same. And one of the reasons is we're not getting more resources, we're getting fewer resources. We have to do more with less money, even after our community made this incredible investment in passing our levy in the spring. So I just want to make sure that folks know that we would love to do really big things to change online learning and have it be maybe not even one-on-one, but the same amount of teacher time. But we don't have the resources. It's literally impossible to do that. So we so appreciate the dialogue to find a way to make this as good as we can, and as workable as we can, and to work with you and get that feedback. So we appreciate that opportunity for sure. And again, thank you for sharing, and thanks for your patience, and thanks to the administrators for listening and being humble in that space too. So sorry, a little fired up, but I'm done now.
Thanks, Matt. Kevin?
Wow, Matt. I like that.
I figured you would.
I'd thank the parents too. Joy, thank you for being here and sharing these points. And I think Matt said it well. It's great to, throw accolades on things, and we certainly never want to miss the chance to congratulate and thank students for what they do, and to try to appreciate our teachers and our staff for how they're managing things. But we also have wide open ears from parents who have concerns, and we want to address those concerns. I couldn't help but to, Christine, I didn't miss your point when you said we're starting to plan for next year, and I was starting to think, well, between like March 11th or March 13th and March 18th, we had to like plan for a year as well. And I'd echo Matt's comments. I mean, we know that online is not the same as in person. We know that. And as many Mason School District watchers might surmise, it's very hard for us to say that. I mean, it's hard for us to say that we know we have students right now that are not getting the best they can possibly get. And I'm pleased that we have the planning and that we're working on the ways to get it there. We always are for parent choice, always are for parent choice every time we possibly can. So while, part of me thinks, man, I wish we could figure out how to get every parent's students back in the building, that's a non-starter. It's the parent's decision, what they want to do. And so our job is to try to do the best we can in that environment. And so I know that we have a team working on it. I know that every teacher knows that every day. And I'm a big guy, and I teared up in one meeting just how frustrated I am with the pressure on the teachers to have to manage through all these things. But I know that we're going to keep our perseverance and keep working on it. And, we're wide open for ideas, and we're willing to invest where we can when it impacts kids. And so certainly appreciate their comments tonight. On the National Merit, I want to thank them, but I also it's a good opportunity every once in a while to thank the things that kind of are the catalyst that get things going. And Connie will remember this, but Mary Ann Culbertson was one time just about as worked up as Matt over the fact that there was only 2 National Merit students one year, maybe 15 years ago, and that we weren't encouraging students to take that, to go through that process. And while I know that's a standardized test and we may not be completely consistent, it opens doors. It's the way that kids, and you saw the kinds of things that those kids are thinking about doing, it opens doors for them. And to know that we had 62, I think, recognized students this year, I just like to rewind back and thank Mary Ann and others over time who have helped encourage kids and families to understand what that process is and the kind of doors it can open. And so it's great to see that. Like to also echo Sean's comments about the Warren County Commissioners, and I went up and spoke to him, and I said, I'm kind of speechless. We got a government entity who proactively reached out to another government entity and said, hey, we have too much money that we don't know what to do with. Is there something you could do with this? And the perspective that they have to recognize that's not their money, that's the residents' money. And to say it makes no sense for them to find just silly things to spend it on just because they can, and for them to reach out and to hear the struggles of the superintendents in this county who are dealing with the basics. keeping kids fed, keeping kids' mental health, intact, keeping their eyes on at-risk kids. To hear superintendent up in Franklin and Carlisle talk about those challenges, it's like 100 miles from Mason. And so the forethought of the commissioners to reach out and do that is unique, and I was glad to go up and thank them, and I know on behalf of the entire board, it's a nice thing to see in today's political world that we had a little collaboration and a bunch of people that recognize it's not their money, it's the taxpayers, and it's best to get it in the place it goes, so, or it can do the best work. And the last thing, I haven't had a chance publicly to share my sympathy about the loss of Debbie Delp. Debbie was a 12-year school board member, I believe, if I have the numbers right. Debbie and I share a unique thing. We went through a recount on our first board election, 2003. So I understand what it's like to go from election day to the certification not knowing what the outcome is going to be. And in those days, we had the internet, but none of the data was on the internet. So you had to call up to Lebanon and ask what the update is. And the vote turned out, it was 17 votes spread across 3 people, and out of maybe 3 or 4,000, I can't remember the total. But Debbie was elected that year after having been a 10-year vocal advocate for special needs, and her fingerprints are all over our special needs programs and commitments that today we operate every day. Many of the ideas are early ideas that she was such a strong advocate for. And the thing I remember most about Debbie was probably the fact that she was a bit of an adversary in the first 10 years of her activity in the school district with the board. It was, you don't understand. And when she got on the board, about 2 years after she was on the board, Connie, you might remember, she said, and we had some hearty arguments, by the way. Back then, I don't know, it seemed like it was much more raw, but she said, I never knew. You guys really do think about this. You are putting efforts against these things, and you just have to communicate it better. And so, I tie that a little bit to some of Joy's comments at the last meeting, that if we need to be better at communicating, then by all means, let's never stop trying to do that, because her perspective and her ongoing leadership, she marshaled us through a superintendent change. She was I think she was the board president. She was around being the board president when we failed our levy.
Yeah, she was president when I was appointed in 2011.
And she had her hands firmly on the reins through some very, very difficult times. And for her husband, Ted, and her family, I know she's had some tough loss in her family, and she's just been a fighter and somebody who, again, like Debbie, will be on the short list of people that have an impact here at Mason. And our prayers and sympathies are with her family, and certainly, her memory will live long here in Mason.
Thanks, Kevin. Connie?
Yeah, I want to first of all thank the parents that attended tonight's meeting and our last meeting. Feedback about our online learning program is the only way that we're going to grow that program and have it work better. And one of the accolades of Mason is we have a history of not ever settling where we are, even if there's something we're doing a great job at. We have a history of not settling. We have a history of asking our staff and having our staff respond with out-of-the-box, creative, different ways to do things. So I'm hopeful, I'm certain we'll take that information and we'll move forward with those families of online learners, because I think that the online factor may be a part of our life for a while to come yet. So that gets me into the National Merit Scholars. And yes, I remember, Kevin, years where we didn't have any students in that category. Of course, we were much smaller then, but we as a district decided to focus and cultivate that environment. And it has really paid off. And like you said, Kevin, it opens doors for these kids. Scholarship opportunities for internships and all kinds of things to set them apart from their competition in the workplace and in their careers. So we're super happy to have that. And I really enjoyed my Sunday talking to the families, seeing the excitement on not just the student, but mom and dad, quite proud. And we had some administrators that made the trip with us that day. I had partnered with Todd, and he's always a good partner. So we had a great afternoon, and thanks to everyone who continues to serve our students in this unprecedented and very difficult time, but still recognize their hard work. The last thing I want to mention is I too would like to express my sincere condolences to the Delp family. Debbie founded a group called ACT in Mason, and it was to serve the families of special needs learners. And I don't know that anyone could have done that any better or with any more passion than Debbie did. And she truly was focused on all students, but the ones that needed special circumstances. She was such a valuable partner for us. And she did serve as president in her last 2 years here, but she has also served, I think is it 12 years that she was on the vocational Scarlet Oaks board as well? So she's just done an incredible lifetime of service to this district. And I know that I'll miss her, and I find, as I look through my tenure on this board, she was one of the great board members. She really, really was. And her last 2 years, she served as president on this board, and I had a feeling she wasn't going to run again. And I suggested, and I was appreciative of the board at that time, that Debbie had earned and needed to be honored for her service by sitting in that middle seat for her last 2 years. And times like this, you're just grateful that you did the right thing. That's all I had.
Thanks, Connie. I also want to acknowledge and thank the parents that came and spoke this evening, as well as the prior meetings that we've had, and echo some of the comments that we've heard earlier. You know, we are in a constant state of improvement and calibrating what our online learning experience is for the families that have selected that and who will remain with that in the next semester. I think, like a lot of the other things that we have been kind of forced into as a result of COVID and the other challenges of 2020, there's some silver linings in, you know, the innovations that have come about out of necessity, and hopefully there's elements that we can maintain going forward that, you know, given but for these circumstances, we might not have ever even explored as an avenue. You know, we kind of joked back in the spring about the diploma delivery for our seniors, that this might be a better way to do it than driving down to Cintas Center on a Sunday and spending, you know, 4 hours down there. The personal touch gave a lot of families something to think about. And likewise, this experience is something that, while we've had a lot of struggles and we've heard a lot of challenges from parents individually, we've also heard of stories of kids thriving in this environment. And it's not perfect, but kids who have really excelled at home and learning online and at a different pace than what they might otherwise be forced to. And so being forced to provide that choice is something that I think is good and will be good in the long run. And hopefully we can, you know, create a platform that is appealing and is an option for people going forward, even when we do come out of the pandemic era, so to speak, and get to a place where people are comfortable back in schools as, you know, they might normally be, but have perhaps discovered a different mode and delivery method of education that best suits their students. And so I also want to just reiterate that we are always open to feedback good and bad, and we will be following up with those families that left their emails with us tonight. But you don't have to wait for a board meeting to reach out to us. Our emails and our phone numbers are on the website. We would be happy to connect with you at a different time when there's more opportunity to get into a dialogue and discuss some of the issues that you've had. I also want to again recognize our National Merit families. It was a very neat experience over the weekend getting to go to their homes. Particularly on the heels of Diwali, we got to see a couple of festive front porches and houses and stuff, and so it was cool to kind of celebrate and share and dovetail on that holiday with some of our families. I also wanted to commend, one of the traditions that I think, not just our school but our community does really well here is recognizing and honoring our veterans, and we had Veterans Day a week ago. We typically have a great celebration in our lower schools and have a parade there and get to honor folks in that way. And I'm glad we were able to commemorate that in a video online, and also wanted to acknowledge and thank the city for going through the steps to become a Purple Heart recognized city, and the memorials that they've put up along the Mason Montgomery Road there are very much appreciated in our community. And then lastly, I just wanted to wish everybody going forward a happy Thanksgiving, and know that we are getting ready to head into the winter sports season and the winter COVID season. I know we've heard from our governor recently about some new restrictions and things like that. We are appreciative of our governor partnering with us in particular, as well as a handful of other districts around the state, to do the pilot program that Jonathan touched on earlier, so that we can not just accept the status quo, but hopefully provide data and give evidence, and whatever direction it goes in, it'll be in the best interest of our kids to hopefully, isolate and quarantine those who really need to be separated from others, and in the meantime, get those kids back into, the community they've chosen to be in sooner than what the current restrictions provide. I know we had a story recently about the mental health impact that we've seen in our schools on our students, relative to how we've historically monitored some of those things, and I'm grateful that we've been able to invest in mental health and wellness in our district over the last couple years, and catch cases that frankly we may not have caught in prior years, but it's still alarming and concerning when we see this trend and this correlation with the isolation that's necessitated by this pandemic, how it's affecting our kids, and we can't just sit by idly and wait for it to fix itself. So whatever we can do to improve and connect people and make sure that we're all leaning on each other, not just our kids but our families generally, know that we are here to help and to listen, and we might not be able to solve every problem that you've got. I've spoken with some parents and families who frankly need an extra set of hands in their home and wish we could provide one-to-one, send a teacher into every household on a daily basis, but we are hoping to constantly improve and up our delivery of the Mason quality we've come to expect. So with that, seeing no other comments, I will move to item number 21, adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.